For more on this, let's bring in Katie Pavlich, editor for townhall.com and a Fox News contributor. All right, Katie, you know, as we saw there with the clip in the report by James Rosen, that this could potentially get ugly on the Hill, no matter which person gets the nod tomorrow night at 8 p.m.
Well, as James noted in his important report about the facts of who these nominees are, Democrats are still very bitter and upset that Merrick Garland didn't get a last-minute chance to be sitting on the bench because they know what's at stake here. This isn't just about Donald Trump replacing Antonin Scalia. This is about Donald Trump being able to shape the future of policy in the country based on Supreme Court precedent and decisions for the next 3 decades potentially. And so they're going to put up a fight. We've seen, despite things not being controversial before Trump became president, they then do become controversial. And you can bet that Chuck Schumer is going to take a playbook page out of Harry Reid's old ways to try and cause some controversy about these nominees.
Well, and as you said, things that may not have been controversial because both these finalists, I'm led to believe it's these two, Judges Hardiman and Gorsuch, although with this president, I feel like he is an independent operator and we can never be too sure until we hear the name. But with both of those judges, many of the Democrats now sitting in the Senate voted for both of these guys.
Right.
So that's going to be interesting for them now to say, as the ABA, the American Bar Association, does ratings on these guys and have said they're either qualified or well qualified. They got through easily last time. How much do you think that may factor into President Trump's decision to narrow to these two? Because he's going to be able to look at some of these senators and say, you already voted for him once.
Right. It certainly helps. I mean, 95-0 in approval in the Senate, and then you also have a voice vote being taken. It's going to be very difficult for Senate Democrats to justify why they were so willing to have non-controversial stances on these two nominees should one of these men be chosen then. But now that Trump is president, then change their opinions and somehow start attacking the details of their records. I think it's interesting to look at the kind of interest groups that line up with these two nominees as well. Let's not forget that the Supreme Court was a huge part of Donald Trump's platform, and he used the Supreme Court as a way to get people who were reluctant, even Republicans, to vote for him on his side when it came to Election Day. We have Second Amendment rights. These two nominees have a record of supporting Second Amendment rights. We have Obamacare. Both of them have dealt with the Obamacare contraception mandate and been on the side of the Little Sisters of the Poor and Hobby Lobby, which of course were immensely important rulings that we've seen in the past couple of years. And so they have good records with the constituency that sent Trump to the White House, and they certainly have a good record when it comes to what people wanted to see moving forward for a couple of decades in terms of policy.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, the exit polling showed for a lot of people this was the reason that they got off their couches and went and voted for President Trump. It was all about the Supreme Court. Interesting differences between these two. They're very well respected, both federal appellate court judges, but with Judge Gorsuch, he's got the more Ivy League, Columbia, Harvard, doctorate in judicial philosophy from Oxford. You've got Judge Hardiman, who now sits on the bench with President Trump's sister. He went to Notre Dame. He drove a taxi to put himself through college. He's got the blue collar appeal. Right. Any sense of which story you think of President Trump may like better?
Well, as you mentioned, it's hard to make predictions in the era of Trump. But I do think that Judge Hardiman's connection to Donald Trump's sister might be something that's not necessarily beneficial to him, because maybe Trump doesn't want that to be a question of a conflict of interest when it comes to his choice. And so I think that maybe that might come up as a question from Democrats about why he was chosen. But based on Trump's support of being a blue-collar type guy who can relate to people across the aisle, I think the blue-collar story might win it out, but we'll just have to see.
We will, and we'll know for sure when we hear the name from his lips tomorrow night, 8 p.m. And, of course, we'll cover it live. Katie Pavlich, good to see you.
Thanks, Shannon.
Bill.